The trade bait board is back, and the full list is available right now on tsn.ca. And there are some big names right near the top. With hockey insider Chris Johnston for a closer look at our trade bait list. CJ, the Canucks have 5 players on our board, including Kiefer Sherwood at number 1 and Elias Pettersson at number 9. There's a better chance Vancouver finishes dead last and makes the playoffs this season. So how deep do you see the sell-off in Vancouver going?
I think a lot of that's going to be market dependent in terms of how many players that the Canucks are able to ship out by the March 6th trade deadline. But at this point in time, what's important to highlight is the fact that they are entirely open to having it be a pretty significant cut. Now, the management there does understand they can't just empty all the cupboards, that you're going to want to still have some veteran players around to help ease the transition as they do proceed into this rebuild. But they have a lot of different things to offer. I mean, Kiefer Sherwood, number 1 on the board, for a good reason. There's a tremendous interest in that player. He is a pending UFA. They're not going to let him walk away from nothing in the summer, and they're not in a position where they're going to re-sign him. So he will be traded. They have some other players like Evander Kane or Teddy Bluger, also pending UFAs. I think they're likely to go. The more interesting question is where it ends up with someone like an Elias Pettersson or even a Jake DeBrusk, Connor Garland. Some of these players that are signed longer term that the Canucks are willing to listen on, that's going to be really a case of if they get something that makes sense to them, they'll move off one of those guys, but they don't have to trade any of those players. And so I think we have to really see how the market develops in the coming weeks and months.
What about the Rangers? They're plummeting down the standings. They got booed off the ice at home on Wednesday night. They got a great asset in pending UFA, Artemi Panarin, who sits at number 3 on our trade bait list, but he's got a no-move clause. What are the chances the Rangers move him?
Well, they have to first have that conversation. And my understanding at this point is that they haven't broached those talks with Panarin or his agent in terms of, where might you want to play? How do we want to handle this? But, the writing is on the wall in that the Rangers do feel as though they're going to need some kind of refresh here. And as a pending UFA who stands to make a lot of money on his next contract, I think Artemi Panarin is very likely to be playing somewhere next season. So in the meantime, is there a way for each side to help each other out? I think that is the main question with this player. And certainly he would be perhaps the biggest piece, most sort of superstar leaning piece that would be available at this deadline if he was willing to play ball. And so, gauging how likely that is tough to do because so much of it is in the control of Panarin. And you can't imagine that he's going to sign up for, a quick move now just to move again potentially in the summer. So I think, it's going to be a narrow field of teams if and when it gets to a point that he's willing to provide a few places that he would go. But, his name deservedly so is here with the Rangers at the bottom of the conference and with him being a UFA and someone that other teams would love to add to their lineup.
Speaking of big names with no movement clauses, Steven Stamkos sits at number 5. It's been a bounce-back season for Stamkos, who's on pace for yet another 30-plus goal season. But the Preds are still in the playoff mix, CJ. How serious is Nashville about moving him?
Well, they've been open to it throughout this season, and especially early on when the team really struggled out of the gates and Stamkos personally had some struggles. It maybe becomes a little less likely with the bounce back that we've seen Nashville reel off here, in part with help from 12 goals in December from Steven Stamkos, looking, far more like the player we've seen throughout his Hall of Fame career. Still has that amazing shot and has been putting the puck in the back of the net. And so, there's two ways of looking at that. One is that other teams that need a little bit of a boost offensively to their forward group, are looking at him and thinking, okay, he's still got it. There's still a player in there that can be helpful to us. But the Predators certainly aren't maybe as, incentivized to blow things up as it felt like they were going to be when we got to the end of October. So I think they're a team that really, how this next 10 to 15 games goes will really dictate what they do at the deadline. Big picture, I don't really see them becoming buyers, but as it stands in this moment, they have a chance to make the playoffs in the Western Conference. And so if they're still sitting in that position on the other side of the Olympics, or as we get right up to that March 6th deadline, I just don't see a world where they're going to be pushing veterans like Stamkos or Jonathan Marchessault out the door. So, they are a swing team for me, but Stamkos is an intriguing player who, like Panarin, has control over the situation, but I think he's going to want to be in the playoffs again. I mean, he had so much success in those years in Tampa. He hasn't signed up to just, cruising towards retirement and with his last best years here, being on a team that isn't competitive. So, we'll just have to see, really how the next stretch of games goes for the Predators to see where those conversations end up.
Teams have got just under 3 weeks before the Olympic trade freeze kicks in February 4th through the 22nd. Then less than 2 weeks after that before the actual deadline. So the clock is ticking.